Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to summer in the African bush, the time of impala lambs and greenery surrounding us. This is Safari Live. Ready? With me is my good friend Brian Joubert and his thumb. Today it is a sandal thumb. It's walking through the hot African sand, but one must remember that together we are known as the Killer Bees. A little bit of a technical difficulty. We are live from the middle of the African bush, so sometimes these things do happen. So just in case you missed it, my name is Brent Leo Smith, and on camera with me today is my very good friend Brian Joubert with the sandal thumb as it tracks across the dastardly hot African sand today. It is 101 degrees Fahrenheit, but we must not forget that Brian and Brent together are known as the Killer Bees. And of course, a very warm welcome to Point O View, Windsor Oaks and Glenwood Elementary Schools for your very own private live school drive. I expect some really good questions from you guys. I'm excited to show you our wonderful home and of course some of the animals that live here. Now, Brian and I saw an elephant from a very long way away, and it was moving through this thick bush, and we're hoping it's going to pop out shortly somewhere around this area. But of course, while we move, there are other fantastical things to spot, and I think I saw one fly away. Hopefully it landed somewhere close by. It did not. But remember, all sorts of questions. I'd love to hear from you, and even if you want to ask about all the wildlife that we haven't seen, if you want to know anything about lions, elephants, leopards, zebras, giraffes, and all the other incredible creatures. And there we have an incredible creature up high. Now, that is a very scary creature if you're a small bird or a squirrel or a mongoose. It is the... Oh, it is. Wait for him to turn. Oh, he's quite far away. Now, there we go. That is the biggest eagle we get in this area. Now, from point to point on its wings, it is about 6'8", and just over 2 meters. It is called a martial eagle, and if you're a squirrel, a mongoose, a francolin, or a guinea fowl, it is death from above. Now, incredibly efficient hunters, and they are able even to take baby antelope. So there are lots of baby antelope at the moment, so the moms will be keeping an eye on the sky to watch out for the massive martial eagle. Oh, man, off he soars. Maybe he'll be lucky and he'll land somewhere close to us, but I don't think so. So he's out looking for an afternoon snack. Oh, has he spotted something that he's on the hunt for? He's losing altitude quite quickly. Oh, is he going to pounce on something? Oh no, he's just gone up again. He was looking for a thermal. Let's just try roll a bit forward. Brian, should I try? Oh, you still got him? Oh, he's going to disappear behind the trees. And he's disappearing out of sight. I was hoping maybe we might even see him drop from the sky. I just mentioned he is death from above for quite a few different creatures. Now, with a lot of your bird species, your females are actually bigger than the boys. So I wonder if any of you guys in the schools there can tell me why is a female bird normally bigger than a male bird. Now there we go. You ask me questions, I'll ask you questions. Why is a female bird bigger than a male bird? Let me know. Okay, let's see if we can find those elephants we saw from a distance. But of course, I'm not the only person out here showing you the wonders of Africa, so let's go meet the very brave James Henry, who's on a bushwalk.
Hello everybody, it's so hot out here. 101 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 38 degrees centigrade, and it certainly feels like it's about 700. My name is James Henry. On camera today is Dave. Now we're out here on foot, hoping to find some interesting little things while we're out here. We're going to look for some insects, perhaps some birds, perhaps some footprints, and also just up ahead behind where we are standing we've got Herbert. Now Herbert is a very good tracker and he is hoping to find a leopard for us. There was a leopard around here somewhere sometime last night. Hopefully we're going to find it. Now I don't want you to worry, because if we do find the leopard is most likely to move away from us, so there's nothing to be afraid of, but it would be so special to show you a little leopard. Now, we are of course on foot, which means we get a little bit closer to the bush than you might otherwise. Now this of course is a giant piece of dung, right? And it can only have come from the bottom of an animal with a very large bottom, and that animal is an elephant. Now what I'm going to do is break it open. Oh, it's impossible to break open. Let's drop it on the floor. And now we can do my favourite thing in the bush. Are you watching? A delicious, delicious smell. I know you all think I'm mad, don't you? It doesn't smell bad at all. In fact, it smells quite delicious. This is elephant dung, and elephants eat such a wide range of plants that when you smell what they've been eating, it smells like spices. So you know what spices are. I'm sure your mum cooks with spices, or your dad cooks with spices, and you can go to the spice rack and open up the cinnamon and the cardamom and the turmeric and all those things. You mix them together and you've got basically elephant dung. When it comes out, it doesn't smell like that at all. It smells pretty disgusting, but this is probably about 3 or 4 weeks old, and it's wonderful. Right, now what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about being on foot in the wild. You've got to walk quite slowly. You've got to watch where your feet are going so that you don't, of course, do this sort of thing. Because if you stand on a stick, something might see us or hear us coming. And you also have to make sure that you've got enough water, especially on a hot day like this. And William, you're wondering how hot it can get. William, it can get up to about 108 degrees Fahrenheit here, so about 42 degrees Celsius. On really, really, really hot days, it can go even higher, sometimes up to 45 degrees Celsius, which is very hot. Oh, look what we've got over here. You see, it's not just about the big animals. It's often about these little things that we miss when we're in a car. Isn't that beautiful? This is a fly, everybody, and it smells delicious. Delicious. Now you will notice that I like to smell things a lot. It smells a little bit like jasmine. I don't know if you know what jasmine smells like. Jasmine smells like roses. I'm sure you all know what roses smell like. And you mix those up with honey, and that's basically the smell that you get from these flowers here. They're a kind of a wild jasmine. That's what we're looking at here. Now, Alyssa, you say, why do I pick up elephant dung? I'm sure you think that's the strangest thing in the world to be doing. Alyssa, I pick up elephant dung because I like the smell of it, and that's one of the reasons that I did it today, but also to see what the elephants are eating. Elephants don't eat dung, or they don't have a very efficient digestive system. So if we look at another piece of elephant dung here, we can tell exactly what this elephant has been eating, right? So if I break this open, I can tell that he's been eating something called a spike thorn tree. Now you need a little bit of experience to be able to do that. He's been eating some combretum or bush willow trees. He's been eating the bark or twigs of probably a knobthorn tree. And what else has he been eating? In the middle of summer, we'd see some seeds from fruits like marula fruits. So he's been eating zebra wood. Look at that. That's quite interesting. So he's been eating lots of different plants, and the only way I can tell what he's been eating is to pick up the dung, break it open and have a look. Now just remember, I mean, if you go out into the wilderness, I wouldn't go picking up any dung. I'd go picking up only dung that I knew the animal of, and I would only pick up the dung of a herbivore. Now a herbivore, as all of you I'm sure know, is something that only eats plants, and plant dung really doesn't smell bad at all. Now, while we're scouring the land here for the spotted prince of cats, Taylor, our friend, has discovered the biggest gangsters of Africa.
Hello and welcome to all the lovely children watching from Glenwood, from Point of View and from Windsor Oaks Elementary. We are so happy to have you here, and well, to also show you the African lions. Aren't they incredible? But before I tell you too much more about them, my name is Taylor, and on camera with me this afternoon we've got Gendre. Now, it was quite interesting trying to find these lions. We went the scenic way round. We actually discovered that they're not too far from a road, but it was the more adventurous route. But nevertheless, we finally got these wonderful cats. Now, I've been on holiday for the last 2 weeks, so I haven't seen these beautiful cats for quite some time. And I must tell you, I cannot believe how big these cubs have got. It looks as though they've tripled in size. So if you've got any questions about these wonderful creatures, and I hope you've been asking lots and lots of questions, we'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can ask your teacher anything you like. Now we're looking at these lovely lions, and I don't know if you noticed, not the whole pride is here. So we've only got 4 lionesses, and then we've got 6 of the cubs, so we're missing 1 lioness. Now, looking at this pride dynamic, this is typically what you will see in a family of lions. Now, Isabel, you were wondering, is it the females that do the hunting, or is it the males? And what is their favorite food? Now, it's quite interesting. It's both of the males and the females. So the boys aren't here at the moment, but that's okay. They're probably off doing a territorial patrol, so marking their boundaries, just making sure that no other males are trying to come through. And I'll get back to your question now. You can see it's quite hot here. It's 101 Fahrenheit. You can see the lions were panting, and this little one is bothering mom and trying to suckle, but they're a bit too old now to be suckling. So Isabel, why lions are so successful is because they hunt in pride. So they're the only cat that will hunt in a group. The other cats are all solitary, which means that they're on their own, which makes it obviously very difficult for them. So the females are the most important when it comes to hunting, because they don't have those big manes that the males have. So it's easier for them to hide in short grass on big open plains. But in an area like we're in at the moment, there's quite a different type of vegetation. You can see there's trees, there's fallen logs, there's some grass, there's a little bit of everything here. So having a big mane doesn't mean that you're going to be spotted as easily as if they were hunting out in a big open grassland. So they do a lot of hunting here. However, if they do go to an open area where the grass is quite short, they'll maybe hang back. Now, the favorite food of the lions is buffalo. Sorry, the heat has melted my brain. So that's what they like to eat, but they'll really catch anything they can get their paws onto. Now, Camden, you were wondering if they will attack us because we're so close. Luckily not, because we've been interacting with these animals for over 30 years. That's a long time. So they've got quite used to us driving around in these vehicles, making noise, listening to me talk or sneeze or do all sorts of crazy things. So they've basically become habituated, which means that they are now used to us. They're not tame. We don't feed them. They hunt for themselves. They drink their own water. So we just come in here, we drive around, we stop at a comfortable distance. Every if they show us that they're not very happy with us, we maybe move a little bit further back. If they're still unhappy with us, then we will leave them alone. And this is the process of habituation. So if you see a leopard for the first time that's maybe come from an area, or even a lion that doesn't know vehicles too well, you'll keep your distance. And every time you have an interaction with it, you try and make it a good interaction, so that eventually they'll be so relaxed with us that they'll come walking right on by. Can you believe that? And it's important though, if you do, or if you're lucky enough to come on safari, you've got to stay sitting down, because if you stand up, you break the outside shape of the vehicle, and that's what could get the attraction of the lions. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer, but we're going to go across to James, who I believe has got a beautiful antelope to show you.
Well, unfortunately, it's not James, it's Brent. And we've got a couple of different species of antelope there. We've got a young male Impala on the right and some Nyala on the left. Now, they're all in this little river basin here. You can see there's a little water hole, and you can see there's a bit of greenery from where there was some water, and that water's gone down, and now there's some nice fresh shoots coming up. So there's lots of animals taking advantage of the fresh shoots. Well, two species in particular, the Nyalas and the Impalas. Now, it's quite interesting. So, Nyalas are almost exclusively, browsers. And what a browser is... Oh, I gave him a fright. He just ran a little bit quickly down the hill. Now, you've got to keep your eyes open, because you never know when there's a lion or a leopard around. So, even though it looks like the Nyalas are eating grass, they're probably not. They're probably eating little acacia plants or other little trees that are growing. So they eat leaves exclusively. And Impala, which is the one in front, is a generalist. And that's one of the things that makes them so successful, is they're able to eat both grass and leaves. There we go. And there's a young male Impala next to a female Nyala. Now, the Nyala is the one with stripes. Now, I'm going to tell you some big words now. This is the scientific name for an Nyala. The scientific name for a Nyala is Traphalagus angazi. Now, normally I wouldn't tell you such big words, but it's a cool story. Now, if we go to the male Nyala, which is a little bit to the right, he's the one who's dark chocolate brown. There we go. There's two of them there. Now, their horns grow in spirals, and that's the family they're from. That's Traphalagus. Now, the really cool part of their name is the second part of their name, Angazi. So, when the first European explorers came out to Africa, obviously a lot of the animals were new. So, off this guy went from a town that is called Durban, and he got lots of people to help him carry all his things as he went off into the bush on an adventure. And he was an explorer, and he crossed a big river called the Tugela River. And Nyala don't live south of the Tugela River, they only live north of the Tugela River, and not many white people had been up there before. So he went there, and all the guys who worked for him had never been north of the Tugela River. And he came across this animal, and he went to his Zulu staff, and he said, "What's that antelope?" And they said, "Angaz." And Angaz is Zulu for "I don't know." So he thought that was actually its name. Its name was actually an Nyala, but therefore when he named it when he gave it its scientific name, it became a spiral-horned "I don't know." So, I don't know if they're Nyala mines, I don't think so, but we're going to keep on moving on, see what else we can find out here in this wonderful African bush. I've seen a very pretty kingfisher, and see if we can catch a glimpse of him. He just flew off. He's going to go for a swim. Boom! There we go. Probably having a drink. Lovely camera work, Brian. Wow! How quick was Brian to keep up with that kingfisher while it went for a drink? There we go. It's called a Woodland's kingfisher. A very beautiful bird. Look at that electric blue colouring. It's about as electric as Brian's camera work was there following the kingfisher. Now, it's not uncommon to see these kingfishers dunking down into the water just to cool off. So basically, they're like swimming. But being a kingfisher, you don't want to swim too much. You don't want to get your feathers too wet so you can't fly. So they just dunk in and out. Very, very pretty. Now, we're going to keep moving. Madison would like to know. Ooh. Oh, there we go. He's off again. Boom! That one's just a drink. He wasn't swimming that time. Oh, he's going back again. Oh, he's so fast. There we go. Well done to Nyla. Nyla says, female birds are bigger because they have babies. Spot on. Very, very clever little girl there. Now, it's because they have to develop eggs, and obviously eggs, they need a lot more sort of reserved energy or reserve fat, reserve food, so they can produce the egg and produce the babies. That's why female birds are bigger. Okay, well, let's leave the beautiful Woodlands kingfisher and carry on moving. And while we move, Madison was wondering, hi Madison, how many different species of animals do we normally see on every game drive? Well, let's work it out. We almost always see Impala and Nyala, zebra, wildebeest, duiker, Steenbok, sometimes giraffe. Well, I'd say probably every drive, anywhere from about 8 to 15 different mammal species on average. That includes some really cool ones like lions, leopards, and elephants. I think I'm going to go look for a leopard. That's what I'm going to go do. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have some luck. Now, Madison, if I had to count all the other animals we see, like birds and bugs and spiders and scorpions, we probably see more than 20 every game drive. Now, and one family I forgot to mention was the reptiles, and it looks like James has managed to find probably one of the coolest reptiles we get out here.
Hello everyone. I fell asleep here sitting with my new best friend, Thomas the Tortoise. You see him there behind me? You might call him a turtle, but that's not what he is. He's a tortoise. And a tortoise is a land-dwelling chelonid. Try and say that in one breath. Land-dwelling chelonid. So he is very similar to a turtle, but a turtle lives in the sea. A terrapin is another kind of chelonid, which lives in fresh water. And a tortoise lives on the land. And that's what this one is. And he's a special kind of a tortoise called a leopard tortoise. And you know, I think this guy, Thomas, is probably over 60 years old, maybe. That they don't get much bigger than that in this area. They grow until the day they die, and they can live to well over 100 years. Now, I'm talking quietly, of course, because I don't want to give Thomas a fright. If I give him a fright, he'll disappear back into his shell. That's how he protects himself against predators. There are very, very few things that are able to eat something like Thomas, because he's got that very, very hard shell. So what he does is he pulls his neck and his feet into the shell, and that protects him from any predators that might want to eat him. So a hyena might come and try and bite his shell off, and also something like a ground hornbill. A hornbill is a very, very big bird, like a turkey, that crushes the tortoise's shell. Now, Ursula, you're wondering how the animals survive in the hot water, in the hot air, in the hot weather. Ursula, much the same way that we do, you know. What do you do when it's hot? You go and you find shade. That's what I've done here. Thomas and I are sitting in the shade. you might have a drink of water. And what water does is help to keep the body cool. You might also make sure that you changed your activities. So when it was very hot, you wouldn't do anything at all. And then when it became nighttime, maybe you'd move around then. So it all depends on what kind of an animal you are. Now remember, so I don't know if you've done this in your little science classes there in the United States, but a tortoise is something called a cold-blooded or poikilothermic, just remember, cold-blooded animal. And that means, unlike us, it doesn't have a temperature that it maintains. We have a temperature that we maintain at around 36.5 to 37 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 98 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly the same temperature as it is here today. And the tortoise doesn't do that. And so when it's very hot, the tortoise can go into the shade and it actually loses heat relatively easily. And then when it's very cold, that's when reptiles don't really like it. And that's why you find far more reptiles closer to warm parts of the world than you do in cold parts of the world. Isn't he a special fellow? And he's standing very, very still. He eats largely green stuff. So green sort of grasses and maybe plants like this one here. Sienna, you're wondering why he's called a leopard tortoise. This is actually not a very good example of a leopard tortoise, because a leopard tortoise is yellow, or yellowish, with sort of blackish type spots, which of course is the same color as an actual leopard. This guy, because he's so very old, he's lost quite a lot of that color. But he's called a leopard tortoise because the shell is normally yellow and brown in much the same way that the fur of a leopard is yellow and brown. Isn't he a wonderful fellow? And he's being so very still because he thinks we can't see him, you see. And Aidan, now you asked actually a very clever question. It's a good question because it's difficult to imagine. You say, is a tortoise born with its shell? Yes, it is born with its shell, but its shell is quite a lot softer and it's tiny. Just listening to some birds that are shouting. But I don't think it's anything too important. They're tiny, they're about that big, and the shell is quite soft. It's not hard like Thomas's shell is now, and it just grows and grows with them and gets bigger and bigger every season. But they are absolutely born with shells. Right, that's Thomas. Let's leave Thomas there. I want to show you one other friend. David, I'm not sure that you're going to be able to get in here, but there's a friend here by the name of Polyrhynchus. Now, Sean, you've asked a question. You say, do the lions eat the turtles? Sean, what did I just say? I just said, Sean, that we do not get turtles here. Turtles, and I'm going to say this very carefully to you, turtles live in the sea. There is no sea here. That is a tortoise. Lions do try and eat tortoises, but it's very difficult for them to bite them and get through their shells. So remember, Sean, this is a tortoise, not a turtle. Now, there is another very special friend. Here we go, David. That friend's name is Polly, and her surname is Rhynchus. Polyrhynchus the ant. And Polyrhynchus is a very common ant around here. They like to live just underneath trees. I suspect that they're running around here because I may be sat on their nest. And if I'm not very careful, I will have Polyrhynchus ants in my pants, and that will be very unpleasant indeed. I think we should move on. Right, let's get going. Now, while we move out of this area, Taylor is still with those big, hairy, vicious lions. Let's go and find out how their sleeping is going.
You can see they haven't sort of changed too much. They're still fast asleep. But this is very typical of lions, especially on a hot summer's day like what we've experienced. And, well, I think that they're probably going to continue sleeping. You can see that little one at the back panting a lot quicker than what Mom is. And these poor little cubs are still going to have to get used to the extreme temperatures. Remember, this is their first summer, real summer, and we've only just started to hit the high sort of 40 degrees Celsius, or reaching high 90s, even into the hundreds, but eventually they'll get used to it. Now, speaking about them trying to cool themselves down, Jordan, you were wondering exactly that. And you can see how they have increased their breathing. You see how their tummies are moving up and down, up and down, up and down. That is the main way that a lion will cool itself down, by panting, very much like your dog does. So opening its mouth, breathing in the cool air, and exhaling and inhaling quite quickly. Fortunately, they don't sweat very well like we as humans do. And another thing that they will do is, if it's exceptionally hot, is often you'll see them going to lay down near maybe a dam or a watering hole of some sort, and they'll actually lay on top of the mud that's sort of hard enough that they're not going to sink into, but because it's nice and sort of wet, it'll be nice and cool as well. Otherwise, they just have to find themselves a good spot under a shady tree, and that does the trick too. Look at all the insects crawling on a Look at all those little ants and things crawling around on that lion's face. Now, Hasta, you're wondering how old are the cubs that we're looking at? My goodness. Now, we as guides have a tendency to do this, where we forget how old the animals are, and we keep them at the same age for about a year. So I've heard, and I must say I'm guilty of it. I used to do it when I was starting off. I forget that they have aged because we see them every day, and after 3 or 4 months we were still calling lion cubs 6 months old. Meantime, they were almost at a year old. So now, we've only got one little cub left that's probably at about 5 months now, and she's lying in the middle, tucked away between her siblings. Can you see this little lion cub there? That is my favorite little lion cub. So I reckon she is probably nearing 5 months old now, maybe just shy of that. And the two laying next to her don't look like the two big ones, or maybe the one big one on the left is probably almost 7 months old now. And the one on the right, probably slightly younger, maybe almost at 6 months, or probably around 6 months now. Time flies, but somewhere around there. And the other two look like the two bigger ones. They're lying just off into the distance. I don't know if you can see. You can see one lying just behind the lioness. That's one of the younger ones, also almost at about 6 months. And then one lying sideways. That's one of the older ones, almost 7 months. And well, very cheekily, I don't know if you can see it from there, but behind the trees, one of the older cubs is actually trying to suckle still. Now, Cameron, you're wondering why do they sleep so long? And this is very important, going back to their hunting strategy. So lions need to rest and try and have as much energy as they can stored up so that they can make a successful hunt. Remember, lions are not very good hunters. So out of, say, every 10 attempts that they make to try and catch something, they may only catch something every 3 times. And if they spend their days running around and doing all sorts of other things, then they won't have enough energy to take down a big animal like a buffalo. Remember, a buffalo probably weighs 3 or 4 times the weight of a lion. So they've got to have lots and lots of energy. Now, I don't know if you can see, there's a couple of little bugs flying around me, and occasionally they're landing on my face and on my hands. They're little stingless bees, and they're obviously just lapping up some of the moisture. We're trying to actually look for one and see if we can get one to land on us. Let's see. But they probably won't now. This is the case most of the time. Let me just have a look here. Oh, we've got a little bit of movement over there. Some of them starting to wake up very slightly now. Now, Aiden, you're wondering how long can lions live for? Well, it depends on if they're a boy or a girl. But the girls live a little bit longer. They can live up to about 15, 16 years. That's quite old for a lioness. And the boys, they don't really live for too much longer than about, I would say, at an absolute maximum, about 12 years old. And that's for a really old lion. I'd say the average lifespan is around 10 years old. But I don't think that they are going to do very much just yet. Now, looking at all these wonderful little cubs we've been seeing, Sean, you were wondering how many cubs can a lioness have at once? She can have up to 6, but 6 little cubs is not very common. They can have anywhere between 2 and 4. That sort of seems to be a common number. Normally when a lioness has cubs for the first time, from my experience, I've seen that they generally only have about 2 cubs, and then sort of as they go on, they can have up to about 4 cubs. You can imagine one little cub is a handful. Can you imagine having 6 of them running around? And well, there are 6 of them in this pride, but they all belong to different mothers. This is lovely, and this is very much what lions will do all day. Now, Ryla, you're wondering if lions are cold-blooded or warm-blooded. They're very much like us. So my earpiece decided to pop out, get back in there, naughty. And they're warm-blooded. So they don't need to sit on the rocks like the reptiles and bask in the sun to try and get themselves nice and warm. They're quite happily able to do that on their own. And every now and then in winter you'll see them cuddling up, like you will cuddle up under your duvet or cuddle your teddy to keep yourselves nice and warm. Well, they just cuddle each other. But keeping warm is not really a problem for them. It's trying to stay nice and cool on these hot summer's days that prove a little bit more challenging for them. But I reckon this evening, maybe they'll get up and go and have a little look around for something to eat, maybe even something to drink. But they don't have to drink every single day. And that's because when they are successful and catch something, when they feed on the blood, that does have quite a bit of water in it. Now, Cosmo, you were wondering if a male lion is bigger than a female lion, or was it the other way around? Sorry, I completely missed that. But it is the males that are bigger than the girls. Sorry, I swapped that around. Is a female lion bigger than a male lion? So no, they aren't. Unfortunately, the boys are much bigger than the girls, as with most of the mammal species, where the boys are bigger than the females. There's an exception though. And that exception is with the hyenas. Can you believe that? That a female hyena, girl hyena, is much bigger than a boy hyena, which is quite interesting. But hopefully we'll find some of those for you to have a look at. But they're quite secretive. We don't see them too often. We normally just hear them. But it's really impressive if you're lucky enough to spot a big male lion. They are quite impressive. Now, speaking about things that they like to catch, and I said earlier that they like to catch a buffalo. Now, Brianna, you were wondering, why do the lions hunt at night? Now, it's not just at night time that they hunt. They can actually hunt any time of the day, and they're known as opportunistic feeders. So basically, what that means is that even though they're just sitting here sleeping, if a warthog or a buffalo or anything came sort of stumbling past here and they didn't know that the lions were here, they'd get up and they try and hunt it. Even if it was in the middle of the day and it was scorching hot, they would still try and catch something. Remember, out of every 10 attempts that they make to try and catch an animal, they might only be successful about 3 times. So they can't let any opportunity go to waste. So I'm sure you've heard the term, a cat nap. That's what they're doing now. They've still got an eye open and they're still listening. You can see, like this female, see how she's just popped her head up just to check around her? Now, Cameron, you were wondering if lions hunt in a pack. They are the only social cat in the world, and that's what makes them so successful. Now, I know Brent is just trying to get to me on the radio. Let me quickly have a chat to him. Standing by, Brent. They were sort of in the middle, I suppose closer to the western side, but they didn't stay on the road for too long. They disappeared, sort of going in a northerly direction off the road again. So just helping Brent. We had some leopard tracks that we found this morning, so I know he's trying to follow up on them. And it seems as though Karula had popped onto the property, and I know that Tangana also came racing through at some point. He just left his tracks behind for us to see, but unfortunately he's moved on. So hopefully Brent finds a leopard for us. He's a very good tracker, and I have no doubt that he'll most likely be successful. But you can see these little cubs though, they get a bit bored of lying around like the adults. So sometimes what they'll do is that they'll wake up a couple of times during the day and play around and jump on each other and then go back to sleep. And they don't have to worry about hunting because they've got mom doing the work for them still. But as they get older, they'll start to enjoy the sleeps. Oh, look how this lioness is stretching out. Now, Matthew, you were wondering if lions have any predators. They do indeed. Even though they are the supposed king of the jungle or the king of the savannah, other lions can be predators towards other lions. Hyenas, even a leopard to some lion cubs would be a predator. Even a big eagle. I've actually watched a tawny eagle almost snatch up a leopard cub before, so you can imagine it would be able to do the same thing to a lion cub. And even the favorite food of the lion, the buffalo, sometimes the tables turn and the buffalo will actually kill lions. So it can be quite dangerous for these lions out here. But when the animals pick up on them, if they can, they'll give them a wide berth, so they'll give them a lot of space, and well, they'll just keep moving on. You can see that little one now having a little bit of a drink. I don't know if this lioness is still producing any milk though, as these cubs that are trying to suckle are getting too old now and are eating solids. Now looking at these beautiful little cubs, and I can't believe how big they've got. Tristan, you were asking when will the lion cubs start hunting. I must tell you something interesting. I saw something quite incredible about a month ago. We were sitting with the lions and they managed to catch a baby buffalo. Now, it's obviously very sad, but the lions need to eat too. That's what you must remember. And especially those little baby lions need to get food. If mom doesn't eat, mom can't produce any milk. But these youngsters are eating solids now, so they're eating the buffalo. And it was the most incredible experience where the little lions had an opportunity to practice all the techniques and how they jump on each other and bite each other. They're practicing, and what they'll do is those things that they practice on each other, they'll eventually use to bring down the prey that they're trying to capture. And they got to practice on a buffalo, a live buffalo, and I've never seen anything like that before at such a young age. Normally cheetahs, the mothers will bring back food that they haven't quite killed properly, and then they can learn like that, but it's not really the case with lions. So when these lions get to about a year and a half or so, they're going to start going out on the hunts with the adults and watching sort of the adults as they do their things and hanging back. But it's very stressful for the adult lions because the little ones get quite excited and sometimes they race out thinking that they're doing good to try and bring down an animal, but in the end they end up ruining a hunt. So they've got, or they have a lot to learn before they become successful hunters like the adults. But unfortunately, it's time for myself and Gendre to say goodbye. And it's been wonderful. I hope that you've enjoyed these lovely lions. And, well, hope you keep on watching and see what they get up to a little bit later. But for myself and Gendre, have a wonderful afternoon or morning, whatever the time may be. We're going to go over to James now.
There, everyone. I'm sorry, I have to modify my voice slightly now because we're no longer talking to children. There, everyone, is the baby Hadeda. And for a moment I thought maybe it was on its own and that the other two with whom it was born, its clutchmates, had unfortunately gone the way of all flesh. But they haven't. Herbert from a greater distance has seen one or two other heads popping out of the nest, so I think they're probably all okay. I think it's such fun to come and see these things every day. It's a little bit like hyena den substitute for them. I loved going to those hyenas every day, and unfortunately they have absconded, so now I must come here to the Hadeda nest. It's not quite as entertaining, but it is very interesting to watch. And also in this vicinity, of course, a yellow-billed hornbill's nest and a cuckoo's nest, but I don't think the hornbill will come anywhere near here while we're here. Oh my goodness, you know what else I think we've got here? What we're going to do, Dave, let's go over here. I think that there is either a scimitarbill or a green woodhoopoe's nest in this tree over here. There seem to be a lot of trees here with tree hole cavities in them, and that means that there are a lot of birds that like to nest in tree hole cavities. Look. Can you hear that? Definitely something going on here. On the very top of the tree, Dave, that's a scimitar. It's got the black beak. And I'm just going to sneak a little bit. Oh, and can you see the other one? It's just landed on the branch there. Oh, yeah. I think that's the other part of the couple. This is fantastic. Please do talk to us, everybody, while we're looking here. We're perfectly available to take your questions and comments now. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. Be good to hear from you over the course of the next little while. I'm going to move a little bit closer. Oh, I can see another one. There's a baby. There's the baby. I'm halfway up the fork on the right-hand side. Can you see it there, Dave? And I know it's a baby because it's got a very much shorter beak than the adults. How cool is that? That is wonderful. Gee whiz. That is fantastic. So we found a newly fledged scimitar. That is brilliant. Now this bird goes. And normally, you see them fly and they just look plain black. You can see that kind of greenish purple iridescent in this kind of light. Let's go a little bit closer. Let's see if it doesn't. And there are also oxpeckers calling here. Are flown off. There are oxpeckers calling here. Now, either there's a buffalo about to flatten us in the bush, but I don't think so. Or there's also an oxpecker nest. Those oxpeckers are alarming at us. They're going, which is what you listen out for if you're ever walking in the bush and wondering if there's a herbivore around. So there's the oxpecker on the top of the tree. They've also flown off now. They're having a bit of a dogfight in the sky. Oh, this time of year is just so exciting, and it's the most wonderful afternoon. If we look around at the sky, you can see there seem to be some burgeoning storms, especially off to the south, and I've just seen a whole lot of sheet lightning there in the background, so maybe we'll have some rain a little bit later. Brent has just driven past us. I'm not sure whether he turned left or right when he got to the end of the road. You can ask him yourselves now.
I'm not telling. No, I'm joking. I went left. So the last tracks of Cuckoo was somewhere down to the southwest of us. So we're just going very slowly, see if she pops out around Drakensberg or Basileia Road. Now there's been no report of her from the south of us, and no sign of her crossing back to the south, so hopefully she's still here. I think the cubs are still down south though. Oh, before it dashes away. There. Hello, little Steenbok. And standing as still as stone. That's where they get their name from. Of course, one of their defensive mechanisms. It's a little male. See his little horns there. Fascinating little creatures. One of the most widespread antelope in southern Africa. And also one of our only non-water dependent antelope we get on Djuma. And he's keeping very still. Quite often when we try to see them from a bit closer, they disappear at a rate of knots. They're also monogamous. Now, they are one of the interesting species. There's a couple of species that have two distinct and very separate populations. So this southern Steenbok population encompasses nearly the whole of southern Africa. Not so much down into the Cape, but Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and then there's a major gap through Zambia, Malawi, and then only again in northern Tanzania, Kenya, do they appear again. Now there's quite a few different species that have that, and it's obviously to do with how Africa has evolved and changed. So there probably would have been at some point a conjoined group of animals. Giraffe is another one, blackback jackal, Steenbok, dik. You've got southern and East African populations, so it's very interesting. And in the middle is the Miombo woodland. Now Miombo woodland is exquisitely beautiful and unbelievable for birds, but it is a very, very low in nutrients. So away from the rivers, it's very dry. It's a dry woodland, and I find it incredibly beautiful, but also the birding. Also, there's lots of tsetse flies there, so you've got to be quite a hardcore birder to enjoy the Miombo woodland properly. But it is very interesting. I always find it interesting how these two, and when these two different groups of the same species have been separated. Now, generally, quite often, large rivers play a role, and rivers change, and lakes move. I mean, the whole of central Botswana was a super lake 10,000 years ago. Now it's a salt pan, a desert, almost desolate of most life. So it is an incredible thing how even in what we consider a long time, 10,000 years, which is actually just a mere blink of an island in evolutionary terms, how things can change. And I mean, if we could come back and look at another 100,000 years, will these separate species have evolved into completely different species? They haven't been separate long enough for them to evolve into different species, but in 100,000 years, or 200,000 years, a million years, could it happen? I mean, I find that stuff absolutely fascinating. Now, let's just make sure our dear old Queenie Karula didn't sneak through here somewhere. Ha! Brian, do you think it is time for a quiz?
Oh, yes.
Do you think it's time for a quiz?
I do indeed.
I think we're going to have a killer bee quiz. Ooh, I think that's a good idea. Killer bee quiz. What are the most different species of cat that the killer bees have had in one sighting? And if you're really good, well, actually, what are the species, and what is the most species of cat that the killer bees have had in one sighting? Send your answers through to questions@WildEarthTV or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Now, there are a few vultures on the tree. Now we have to ponder, have they found some meat? Oh, look at the size of that crop. I think they're just full and resting. So that top vulture, you can see that bulging neck. That is a crop full of rotting meat, more than likely. So they have eaten well. There's 3 of them there. Is it enough to warrant us going to have a closer look? Probably not. I think they're resting now, and wherever they have been, they have managed to get themselves a delightful, or if you're a vulture, a delightful meal from a human being, a meal that would probably make you violently ill. Oh, there's another bird next to us. Let me just... Oh, you're going to fly when we move. And you see him on that tree wisteria to the left slightly. There we go. I'll zoom in there. There we go, sitting on the branch. And the reason, look how it's holding its wings out. So that's one of the ways to keep cool. So it's getting the wind to blow under its wing and cool down the blood that is coming to the surface on those capillaries under the wing. It's still very, very warm and humid, even though the cloud cover is here. And that is, of course, a ring-necked dove, or a Cape turtle dove. everyone's hot today. So Brian and I are going to turn on our air conditioner, which means we're just going to keep moving. I think there's been maybe a little confusion in the question. It was, what was the most number of cat species the killer bees have had in a single sighting? So you had to see more than one species of cat in a single sighting. Justin, you are spot on. I think in terms of cat species that the killer bees have seen together: a lion, a leopard, serval, cheetah, African wildcat. I think that's it. It's 5. So different species of cat the killer bees have seen together. But we're talking about how many of those species have we seen in a single sighting at the same time. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. Kelly thinks it was 3. Brian, do you remember seeing 3 cats in one sighting? I don't think so. Oh, there we go, another birdie. While we ponder. Oh! Dastardly Cuckoo. And it looks, and we're just trying to see the chest to see whether it's a Jacobian. Oh, I think it's trying to find a nest. Oh, it's a Jacobian cuckoo. I think it might be looking for the Burchell Starling nest. It is one of their favorite brood parasites. So the Jacobian and the Valance cuckoo or striped cuckoo will look for starlings' nests, and they will lay their eggs in the starling nest. And there's the Burchell Starling that often inadvertently end up raising cuckoos to adulthood and not their own young. Of course, their own young are often, well, before they are born, murdered by the cuckoos as they kick their eggs out of the nest. So, just to let everyone know, it seems like our Wild Earth email server has, what is the correct word? Crashed. Exploded. Overheated. So we are not receiving any emails at the moment, and it's not because we don't want to answer your emails, they're just not coming through. So remember, please tweet if you want to get your question through on Twitter with the hashtag Safari Live. Now also, as it is Christmas season, we must remember that we have now got a few items online that are available for our viewers, and the sale of all the shirts, mugs, and other goodies is specifically so we can travel to new places in Africa next year. I mean, we're talking about Chobe Riverfront. Imagine that, seeing 2,000 elephants in an afternoon. Back to the gorillas in Rwanda, Masai Mara, Liwa Plains in Zambia to see the second largest wildebeest migration, and also one of the most incredible concentrations of hyenas and cheetahs and wild dogs in Africa. I've actually been to all of those places, and I would say we definitely want to go there, and I would love to take all of you on an adventure to some of the places I've spoken about while on the live drive. So go have a look on our website or on our Facebook page. You'll find a link to some Christmas goodies, and it's only for a few days that those things are going to be available. And if you are in the US, you will be able to receive those items in time for Christmas. Now, we're going to keep looking to see if we can find any sign of our beloved Queen Karula. While we do that, we're going to go back to James, who has got a completely evil insect that has absolutely caused a lot of pain in my life when I was younger, and fortunately I've learned a lot about them, and so I try to avoid them these days. So let's go learn a little bit more about the evil pseudo ant with James.
Now, we had this thing, everybody, on. It is evil, as Brent says it is. It caused me some pain in my life too, but only once. I, of course, have avoided it more successfully than Brent has. And I will tell you, ha 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 ha. I will tell you, I've been trying to do that now for half an hour. Oh, come on now, it's a velvet ant, by the way, which is a kind of a female wasp, which many of you will know them around. Sorry about that. About that, everybody. I'm just trying to wrangle it again. I will tell you that what's happened is that there are tracks of the queen and her cubs all around here that Herbert has just found, and he thinks that she's probably headed south into Little Gowrie. We're right on the southern boundary at the Mulwati, and this beastly little velvet, and I'm so tempted to pick it up with my hands, but I know it will sting me beastly. Let's try once more to wrangle it onto the stick. I managed twice now. There we go. I am the velvet ant wrangler. Come, velvet ant, come. No. Don't go off. There we go. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, as I say, it's a wasp, the female version, because only the females can sting, and only the females can sting because only the female has an ovipositor, which is, of course, the egg-delivering organ. The male's totally stingless. Oh, it's getting close to my hand, David. Sorry. She is very... very difficult. Where's she gone? There she goes. So great. Anyway, we haven't found direct evidence that the queen and her cubs have gone the other side. So what we're going to do is just quickly do a check around this area and see what else we can find. I will, however, try and find you a track in the sand here. Dave can't actually bend over now because, unfortunately, the signal will go. So I'll try and find you a track. I think let's put this poor lady down. Off we go. Here is a track here. Now, it's going to be impossible for you to see, and that actually is important to me, because when we were walking along here, Herbert said, stop here. I see the tracks. Look, there's Karula's track, there's the male cub's track, and there's the female cub's track. I stared at the sand, and with all of my 15 or so years of experience living out here in the bush, I failed to discern anything other than sand. And of course that made me feel distressed and sad about myself, and I had to tell myself that I was still valid as a human being, despite the fact that I was unable to see these tracks. But there is the track of, I think, the mother. I'm getting nods of approval from Herbert. That's only because he told me what it was. And I think what you can see here is the back pad where my finger is, and the 4 front pads or front toes there. So she was heading off towards sort of the southwest, and the southwest, unfortunately, is where Little Gowrie is. And Little Gowrie is where you and I, David and Herbert, may not go. Ever. Taylor is still with the lions. She can go there. We're not going, but you are.
We're still with the wonderful Nkuhumas. Now, we're starting to actually see a little bit more action now, which is wonderful. The little darlings are rolling around. I'm not sure if that's because they're waking up or if the bugs have eventually gotten to them and annoyed them to the point that they have to move around a little bit. But it seems to be a trend this afternoon amongst the Nkuhumas to sort of lay on your back with your legs spread, starting with the little cub. And then with the lioness at the back as well. She's also dangled up against the fallen tree. And I just can't believe that these cubs are still wanting to suckle, especially the older ones. They're being a bit cheeky now. But it's so lovely to see them, and it's incredible to see how their condition has improved incredibly since the last time I saw them. I was very, very saddened by their state as to how thin they were, and sort of what they were looking like. So I'm really, really happy to see that they're looking a lot better and are moving around with ease this time around. I'm waiting for my favorite little girl who's sleeping at the back to wake up so I can have a good look at her, but she's not cooperating at the moment. It just seems this little boy is having a good afternoon and trying to wake everybody up, checking all the lionesses to see if they are lactating. Now, no, she's clearly not. Now, I haven't been able to work out who's missing just yet. I'm trying to figure out if it is Amber Eyes or the youngest lioness. I'm not too sure just yet. But I suspect it is Amber Eyes that could be missing, because it looks like it's the youngest lioness that's just lying off to the right of this cub, because she had an awfully pink nose. And of course she's got no suckle marks or anything, so it's one of the two. But we'll have a look when they stand up. It'll make it a little bit easier. Hello guys. He's on an adventure. What are you going to get up to this afternoon, young man? Bless you. Go to the toilet. Check. They're almost quite predictable, aren't they, these lions? They always do the same thing. Go and wake your sibling up. Now this little bush willow is obviously perfectly in the way, but that's alright. I don't think he'll be there for too long. Come on, little flip-flop girl, wake up. Now, AJ, you were wondering, and it's something that we've actually been chatting about quite a bit over the last few months, well, definitely a hot topic since I've been working here at Wild Earth. Now, you were wondering, if the lion cubs have mange, will it make its way around the entire pride? It indeed will, and it indeed has, especially amongst the cubs. But they seem to be doing all right. There's a couple, like he looks like he's quite patchy on the elbows, but now I'm uncertain if that is just a combination of maybe mud or buffalo feces. I'm not sure when they ate last, or if it is actually a bit of mange. But I think that they'll be fine. I think they've made it past the worst stages now, and the condition of the animals should start improving. Not just with the lions, but of course with the quality of grass, which means that the quality of meat from the buffalo in particular will start to improve too. Now, I was chatting to a couple of the guides down in the south, and a few of them were telling me that the lions down there, the southern pride, started to show some interesting behavior, very much like what we started seeing up here, with the cubs going from being so energetic to lethargic, and you could see their hips protruding, and then they started not being able to walk properly. And isn't that amazing? So it seems as though they also picked up that white muscle disease. I can't remember if any of the cubs passed away or not, but they even started seeing it in the adults, starting to almost look like they had hip dysplasia. I always like to describe it like that, because that's what it reminded me of when I used to have a German Shepherd as she got older. And but it seems as though they're okay now as well, since they've had a bit of rain and the grass has come through, so that's lucky. But it does make me feel, and I suppose it's the wrong way to say it, but it was nice to know it wasn't just the Nkuhumas that were affected by it, is that it was affecting the different lions in the area as well. Because I think, in general, the Nkuhumas are quite a strong pride. The lionesses look like they've got fantastic genes. They're not small lions, and they don't seem to really have any mange. And I think that those genes are going to shine through with these Nkuhuma cubs, and I think that they've sort of proven it now. They look fantastic. They've tripled in size. They don't look like the same things, the same little lions I saw just 2 weeks ago. But I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to go for a little drive and see what else we can find, but we'll be back here, and hopefully when we do come back, they would have woken up. But let's go back across to Brent and see how his hot afternoon is doing.
Welcome back, welcome back. We are giving James a hand. James says he can't find any obvious signs of the cubs crossing to the south, but the general direction was south and west. So we're going to head a little bit further west than we've been this afternoon, check down towards Weaver's Nest, and then check on the road towards where James had last tracks. Maybe we'll find tracks of them crossing, and maybe we'll find them. So we've got a few answers for the Killer Bee quiz, and the last one was indeed correct, but there are 2 correct answers. Aha, it was a trick quiz, because the Killer Bees are so tricky. Oh, the only thing that can distract us slightly from a Killer Bee quiz is tracks of a leopard, but it is a baboon. Yes, it's a baboon. So we indeed have seen 2 different, or we've seen 3 different cat species, but not all in the same sighting. So leopard is the common denominator, but in both those sightings, the one sighting was a very, very long time ago. Boo Boo, you are spot on. We saw a lion and leopard, and that was at Twin Dams. There was, what's her name? The now expired Kwatile mating with Mvula, with Karula looking on, and the Styx lionesses arrived. So there was that, and I'd actually forgotten about that one, so thanks Booby Sode, Brian. The one we were thinking of, and obviously especially since I saw both of those exact animals yesterday, was we had Quarantine the male leopard chase those 2 male cheetah. So those are the 2 multiple cat sightings. Now, believe it or not, many moons ago in northern Zululand, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Shimungwe Dam, the Battalier Pan or Battalier Dam, I saw a lion, a leopard, elephant, oh, first baby warthogs! They're so small! They're so small! They're so cute! I want to eat it! The Killer Bees. Yay, I'm so happy! They're so cute! Look at that. Sorry, Mama, we came around the corner with me making a lot of noise. Off they go. Those are a day old at the most. Well, Brian, you weren't with me for the first baby Impala because you were on holiday. Yeah. But Killer Bees for the first baby Warthogs. Is that another first of the season?
I think it is.
Oh dear. Shh, don't tell the other presenters. What if we had first Woodlands? First Impala? What else? There's been a few firsts this year. Oh, you know, when you get the first, you just start losing track. Let's see. I'm just going to get those warthogs a bit of a chance to move away. They might move into an area where it's a bit more open. Oh, they were so cute. 4 of them. 4 little sausages. 4 little warty sausages. Now, of course, warthogs of that size are proper leopard snacks. And now I've watched a female leopard many years ago called Vomba actually in an afternoon managed to catch all 4 of Mother Warthog's babies, but Vomba was a special warthog hunter. Now we'll try to get another view of those warthogs, but I was telling a story about many moons ago out of Battalier Pan at Pinda, and saw lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and rhino. The big 5 from one position. That is the first and only time I've ever seen that. I've often actually seen 4 together, and but not 5. Okay, she ran through here, so I'm just going to go slowly. William's wondering, do the baby warthog have little tusks? Indeed they do, William, very, very little, so little they're not protruding out of their mouths yet. Now that's one of the reasons it's thought that warthogs have those big white whiskers, and especially when they're younger those whiskers are more prominent, and that's because it emulates possible tusks to try scare off certain predators. Now baby warthogs of that size are fair game apart from the cats and obvious mammalian predators, but also to martial eagles. I think even an African hawk eagle would think about taking. I mean, they were literally the size of a sausage. They were tiny, tiny, tiny. But it looks like Mom's headed off into the thick bush with her babies. And we are looking for Queen Karula in this area. So be careful, Mama Warthog. Leopards like warthog babies. Now, of the warthogs we see, the Arathusa airstrip warthogs seem to be very, very good at rearing their young to adulthood, specifically since Mr. Anderson and Tingana, both well-known warthog eaters, spend quite a bit of time in that area. Now, we're going to keep looking for any sign of the Queen. While we do that, James has found some interesting things to show you that are on a tree.
Some interesting things on a tree indeed, and let's hope we have some success with the Queen. We've kind of come the other way. I'm pretty sure she's gone south, but we're hoping against hope that maybe she came back, and so we're heading up a drainage line here. Now, I'm not pointing at you with a knife because I'm feeling in any way indisposed to your general personalities. What I want to do is cut open a gall here that is sitting on a tambuti tree. Now, I don't know what's formed this thing. Safe to say that in this one, if we look over there, David, can you see there? That looks like a sting. Now, I'm pretty sure an insect has stung this. Why it has stung this, I don't know, but some way to going to find out will be to cut this thing open. So let's take it off the tree. There we are. Now, what we will do is place it upon a board and cut it. My mummy always said to me, if you're going to cut something, put it a board out, please, James, otherwise you'll scratch the countertop. She still says that to me, of course, when she's not shouting at me for not taking pictures of the sun, or for only taking pictures of the sun. Right, here we go. Now, there is nothing of great interest in there other than the poisonous white milky latex. Now, it is quite possible that whatever stung this has infected it with something and it is going to try and come back and eat here. Alternatively, it's possible that there could be eggs in there, but I don't think there are. I don't see any obvious signs of eggs. We will just chop it once more into quarters. This knife was sharpened by Stefan Winterboer, which means you can probably shave with it. I'm not going to try that. But that's interesting. There is the kind of central red heart of this gall. What did it? I don't know. And why it was done, I'm really not sure. Any ideas? Send them through hashtags for live questions at WildEarthTV. It'd be lovely to know from you. Now, the other thing that we have over here, every time you sit down out here, you find lots of interesting things. I'm just going to fold away my knife, push it away in my pouch. 2 days ago, Brian and I were on a walk, and we found some drop-tailed ants raiding the nest of a termite. A termite nest. Not one termite lived in the nest. And here is one of those drop-tailed ants now. Now, it is almost certainly going to bite or sting me. I'm going to squeal. But there it is, and the reason it's called a drop-tailed ant, can you see, David?
Yes.
It's got a dropped tail. Its tail, is dropped down towards the ground. It's red in colour, and it is different, of course, from the cocked tail ant, which has a tail that goes the other way entirely. So he really doesn't want to be on camera in the slightest. There we go. He's got caught in the hairs of my arm, hasn't he? Poor fellow. Anyway, that is the drop-tailed ant, and I don't think they taste quite as good as Polyrhynchus. I think they're filled with formic acid and probably taste very disgusting and will probably bite me on the tongue, so I'm not going to eat those. So, just a quick summary here. Tambuati tree, been stung by something. I don't think it was one of those ants, although there are lots of the ants around here, but this whole tree is infested with those galls, and maybe they have a nest not too far from here. In fact, underneath this tree, I think, and maybe it was them that did that. Who knows? Come on then. Let's go down through here. Oops. Herbert has gone up the drainage line. What we're going to do is cross it and walk along the game path on the northern side. And it's just a lovely game path to be walking on, especially on a day like this. In the background, we can hear some baboons going, ha, ha, bow, bow. Which, if you didn't know what it was, would be a terrifying sound, but baboons are terrified of us. One person I'm not very terrified of on account of her sparkly personality is Taylor. She is still with the lions.
I'm so disappointed that I'm not intimidating enough to scare James. I'll have to work on that. I thought I've just heard some Impala alarm calling. It obviously doesn't look like the ones that we are looking at, though. It sounded like quite far in the distance. So perhaps we'll go and investigate. I had to put my extra ears on. And well, my extra ears, that is me cupping my hands around my ears. Can you hear that? And I think I can hear a wildebeest too. You can see those Impala looking back behind them, especially these ones over here, but further to the left. Just in the thicket. Not now, she's not, but the other. Let's go up a little bit further. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear, you probably can't hear that because I'm only just hearing it. Let's go and see what's happening down the road. Go on a little investigation. It's good to know that I have my bush ears back. That's something that I'm always worried about when I come back from the city or the concrete jungle, is that I can't hear anything for the first couple of days. So I'm glad that I could still hear that. Let's go and find out who is shouting. Maybe it was a wildebeest that was alarming. I could still have my city ears on. Right. Those Impala look very relaxed. Let's stop and listen again. Now I know Jamie said she thought she had, well, she said she had some leopardess tracks going through here. So perhaps it is Shadow. Maybe she's going to make an appearance. But it's definitely not these girls. You can see they are listening, moving away. So let's go towards the area that they are moving away from. Oh, she's heavily pregnant. Very cautious. And there's a bit of a breeze now, so we know what that means. That with that breeze comes muffling of sound. So they're going to be a little bit more cautious. Can you hear something? What did you hear? Jandre said he's heard something. Jandre thinks it's the lions. Ah, maybe, there we go. Chandra is very intelligent this afternoon. Me, on the other hand, not so much. I think we're going to swap. Chandra is going to carry on presenting because I'm not with it today. So Chandra very, very cleverly said, as this wind is just picked up now, it's probably the scent of the lions that they're smelling. Thank you for reminding me about that. I completely forgot that can happen. Thanks, Chandra. And, well, we've actually just done a little loop. And we're about to pop up on the power line road again. We know that the lions are around here. So let's have a look again. Now I've got to